What are fermented foods? Fermented foods have been a staple of diets worldwide for thousands of years. They're made by letting bacteria, yeast, or fungi work their magic on various foods and drinks, producing delicious, tangy, sour, or fizzy results that scientists now say can boost health and even longevity. What's good for the gut is good for you. The latest scientific research shows that eating fermented food can change the makeup of the ecosystem of trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi living in your gut, which is collectively known as the gut microbiome. A landmark study shows fermented foods reduce inflammation. A 2021 Stanford University study looked at how fermented foods affected healthy adults. Half of a group of 36 were told to eat more fiber-rich plant foods like fruit and veggies, while the other half started eating a lot of fermented foods. After 10 weeks, the fermented food group saw big reductions in inflammatory proteins associated with diseases like diabetes and arthritis, higher levels of gut microbiome diversity. Unsparingly, the guts of the people eating fermented foods also began to host more diverse microbes. The same study found more fermented foods were associated with more biodiversity. However, it wasn't only that the specific probiotics consumed started growing in the intestines. Instead, the fermented foods seemed to recruit a whole array of different microbes to the gut. Specific food studies. While there are tons of different fermented foods, and it's a fairly new realm of study, a 2022 meta-analysis published in the journal Nutrients highlighted some of the most solid scientific evidence around the specific health effects of fermented foods so far. Yogurt is associated with a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. A study that followed nearly 4,000 people for decades found that dairy products didn't impact the chances of developing type 2 diabetes. That's good news in itself for dairy lovers, but yogurt was even linked to a reduced risk of developing the disease. Fermented dairy products are good for longevity. A study that followed more than 4,500 people for a decade found that fermented dairy products like cheese, kefir, or yogurt were inversely associated with overall mortality. In other words, people who consumed them more died less during the study period. Fermented dairy could help prevent cardiovascular disease. Population studies from around the world have found that consuming fermented dairy foods like cheese and yogurt is associated with a reduced risk for cardiovascular disease, according to a 2015 paper in the British Journal of Nutrition. Fermented milk is good for muscle soreness. A 2013 Japanese study found that a fermented milk product alleviated muscle soreness and related biological markers after high-intensity exercise in a group of healthy young men. Kimchi was linked to anti-diabetic and anti-obesity effects. One study found fermented kimchi to be beneficial in a group of people with pre-diabetes, even compared to those who ate fresh kimchi. Another study found consuming fermented kimchi reduced body weight and boosted the metabolism in overweight and obese people. Potential effects on your mental health. In recent years, scientists have found strong links between the gut biome and mental health and cognitive performance. While studies are few, a 45-person review found people eating more fiber, prebiotics like oatmeal, and fermented foods reported feeling less stressed than a control group on a different diet. Another 2015 study found fermented food consumption was linked to less social anxiety. Miso, calmness, lower blood pressure, and decreased heart rate. A 2020 Japanese study found that miso, a fermented soybean paste often used for soup, can lower blood pressure, decrease heart rate, and calm nerve activity, even though it has a high salt content. That's interesting because salt is generally known to provoke the opposite effects. Natto, linked to reduced blood clots, lower blood pressure, and increased nutrient absorption. Natto is another soy-based fermented food rich in protein, vitamins, and minerals. But most health benefits are found in the nattokinase enzyme produced during fermentation. Studies link it to reduced blood clots, lower blood pressure, increased bone strength, and increased nutrient absorption. Tempeh, another fermented soy product from Japan linked to longevity. After controlling for other diet components, hypertension, diabetes, smoking, alcohol intake, and other factors, scientists looking at nearly 100,000 Japanese people for 15 years found that 10% of people who ate the most fermented soy like tempeh, miso, and natto, compared with those in the lowest 1/5 for fermented soy intake, had a 10% lower risk of death. Kombucha, fewer studies but a promising fermented drink. Besides evidence to support the power of fermented foods in general, kombucha, a fermented tea, hasn't been deeply studied. According to the Mayo Clinic, some research suggests kombucha tea may support a healthy immune system and prevent constipation, but more evidence is needed. Pickles and sauerkraut. Check to see if they're pasteurized. These two beloved staples are both packing fiber. but they can either come with the benefits of fermented foods or not. As a rule, if you buy them unrefrigerated, they are probably pasteurized, a heating process that kills all the probiotics. If unpasteurized pickles and sauerkraut are unavailable at the store, you can make them at home. Democratized health, DIY, fermented food. Pretty much any whole food can be fermented in your home on the cheap. What I like about fermented foods is that they democratize science. They don't really cost much, and you don't have to get them from some fancy store. You can do it yourself. Olives, fermented but commonly pasteurized. Olives are one of the oldest fermented foods in the Mediterranean area. While some traditionally cured olives are available, many are often pasteurized too. That means they won't all carry the same probiotic punch as seen with other fermented foods. However, they have still been linked to numerous health benefits. Fermented breads like sourdough are also promising. Again, studies are really just getting started, but a 2022 experiment in mice showed potential health benefits of sourdough bread, such as cholesterol reduction, inflammation alleviation, and healthy gut microbiota maintenance when compared to non-fermented but similar white bread. Beer is fermented. Does that mean it's a superfood? Yes, beer is fermented, but that doesn't mean that guzzling pints is good for your health. Most beers are pasteurized, which kills all bacteria, including the beneficial probiotics. However, some contain live bacteria, and studies have shown moderate consumption could boost gut microbiota. However, that must be balanced with the negative effects of alcohol. What about wine? Wine is also made by fermenting grapes, but sulfites can inhibit the growth of beneficial probiotics. A 2019 study by King's College London found red wine, not white, was associated with increased gut microbiota diversity, but suggested that the high levels of polyphenols, not probiotics, could be responsible for much of wine's controversial health benefits when used in moderation. So in the grand tapestry of nutrition and well-being, the ancient art of fermentation emerges as a vibrant thread, weaving together tradition and modern science. This flavorful journey through the world of fermented foods has revealed a spectrum of health benefits that extend from our gut to our overall vitality, and even to the tranquility of our minds. As we close this chapter, let's carry forward the wisdom that what we eat truly transforms us inside and out. Whether it's the longevity linked to natto, the metabolic magic of kimchi, or the calming qualities of miso soup, these fermented treasures offer a simple yet profound message. Great health can be delicious, accessible, and in many ways, homemade. So raise a glass of kombucha to your health. Or better yet, roll up your sleeves and start fermenting at home. After all, each jar of sauerkraut or batch of yogurt is not just food. It's a living connection to a world of wellness waiting to be discovered.